call the Audit Committee to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Schutte,
Here.
Vice Chair Lambin,
Here.
Member Duke, Member Scalia, Member Stack, A quorum is present.
Thank you. Next, we have public comments and discussion. The public is invited at this time to provide comment on any topic that relates to a matter over which this public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power, including any such matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there any public comment? Okay. Then next, approval of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes? Yes. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Next, item 5A for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a report prepared by the Carson City Internal Auditor, Ide Bailey LLP, for the fiscal year 2025 audit work program concerning the Carson City credit card payment security and compliance internal audit, including findings and recommendations. Sherry, please take it away.
Thank you. I do believe I'm going to hand this right over to Ide Bailey to go over the report, and so we'll take it away, Audrey.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Audrey.
Sherry, and thank you, Audit Committee members. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So I am going to turn this over to Brad Lamog and Eric Pulse, who worked together on this engagement closely with Frank Abella, the Director of IT Operations, as well as Andy Razor, the City Treasurer. The engagement wrapped up with 2 observations that they will walk through. Eric is the principal on this engagement, and he is present to address any questions that the Audit Committee may have. Brad?
Thanks, Audrey, and thanks, Sherry, and the Audit Committee. Again, thanks for the support and guidance throughout this engagement. So this engagement stemmed from our annual risk assessment, and this identified several risks within the audit. So this was regarding findings of PCI noncompliance, inefficiencies with vendor contracts leading to higher transaction costs, and inconsistent credit card processing agreements. So we did get the acknowledgements from the Audit Committee that time, but again, like Audrey mentioned, I wanted to extend my thanks to Frank, the Chief Information Officer, Andy, the City Treasurer, and everyone else that was involved. There was timely provision with the information, and the feedback was really well together for the engagement. So the briefing will cover the results of this area, what's working well, where there are improvements of opportunities for improvement, and what's already been implemented. So before I go on with the observations and recommendations, it's important to highlight that the city has established a strong foundation for PCI compliance payment card industry, with no issues identified with the recent assessments and how robust their governance is, demonstrated by both IT and the Treasurer's Office. And for the methodology, we looked at card transaction workflows, vendor oversight, PCI compliance procedures, and that included attestation of compliance, self-assessment questionnaires, and they also do quarterly PCI vulnerability reports, including external penetration tests. So with the first observation, this relates to payment processors and respective fee structures. And it's important to note that this does not represent a significant risk to the city's compliance posture, but it's more of that each payment processor is appropriately managed and monitored within its respective departments. So during our review, we found that several departments utilize different payment processors, and this is due to proprietary systems, and there may mandate specific integration capabilities. And then these system-driven requirements, along with those vendor imposed restrictions, limits the city's ability to consolidate payment processing under a single provider. But sometimes this may create inconsistencies with fee structures and vendor agreements. So to address this, we recommended the city initiate a cross-department review of payment processing arrangements. And the goal is to identify areas where fee structures can be aligned, where vendor agreements can be standardized, and this also helps with their transparency and oversight of being improved. And Andy, the treasurer, already agrees with the recommendation and provided a detailed response to address the identified risk. The next observation highlights an opportunity to improve contract management documentation. So we noted 1 out of the 7 payment process contracts reviewed was not current and outdated. And the city does maintain internal controls over payment processing, but maintaining current contractual documentation is a key component of effective vendor oversight and contract compliance. So based on this, we recommended the treasurer to collaborate with the contract administrator to ensure all contracts and several service level agreements are current and are maintained. And Andy, he's already been proactive with the contract administrator, Carol. They both agreed on the collaborative process, and this recommendation was implemented. That concludes the briefing of the credit card payment security and compliance review, and I will now turn it over to the audit committee for any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions, comments, suggestions?
None on my part.
Yes.
I was looking over this and I noticed like Public Works is running, it appears to be 3 different systems, 4 different systems. And I'm kind of curious for payments, why? I mean, a little background, I worked for a county and we had like 2 different systems and that was it. Hospital ran one, the rest of the county ran another. But I'm just kind of curious, with one department, why is there such a fracture?
So good afternoon. For the record, Andrew Razor, Carson City Treasurer. So the question you asked is actually a good one because when you look at the different systems that are in use, so I'll first start with the landfill. So back, I think it was in 2023, they went to a new payment or a weigh system, the Weighmaster, I believe is what it's called. So when they constructed the new scale house out at the landfill, they tore down the old one, put in the new one, and implemented a new software. And so that system, when they were bringing it online, was pretty much saying, this is the system, the payment system that we're going to use. And so we had also looked at NCR, our National Cash Register, to assist with that. But at that time, NCR would have to build the necessary API, and that's the application programming interfaces. And so at that time, NCR couldn't do that, and Card Connect is the one that they went with. And so that's why you see that one for specifically for the landfill. Now, as it relates to the other public works, recently there was Senate Bill 358, and 358 specifically required that government entities have to provide an electronic payment option for businesses, not for individuals or persons, but for businesses. And so that was effective on October 1st. So when I reached out to the different city departments and offices, I asked them, are there any, I guess, kind of outliers, anything that you have that we don't have a payment processor for? And at that time, Public Works responded back saying that, yeah, we have the construction meters, we have the fire flow, we have the sewage deposit. Essentially, that's where you get somebody that wants to drain, like a septic tank and that. And at that time, because NCR has our best rate, that's why we set them up. So it doesn't say that the businesses have to use that. They can still provide check if they want to do that. But we just made that option because one, Public Works, it's not in the Tyler system. They're billing that separately out of another system they have. And so they don't need the integration to be able to connect with a specific payment provider. And then when it comes down to utilities, when we went to the citizen self-service and the Tyler utility billing system back in 2021, when we did that, we first started off using the AMS Bridge Pay, and that's the one that's connected to the citizen self-service. The citizen self-service, as I mentioned in a previous audit committee meeting, is the one we had difficulties with just because it wasn't user-friendly and was really difficult for citizens to use that. So to assist with that, we also allowed them to do the what we call a one-step payment method with NCR. And that's where we put up a payment link on the website. So even though citizens do have that option to go through the Tyler CSS to connect with AMS Bridge Pay, we have found that the NCR, we've never even advertised it, and we found a great response for it. And it has a good rate. It's at 2.25%, meaning that if a customer's bill was $100 and they paid with a credit card, it'd be a $2.25 fee. So right now, I've been working with the Chief Information Officer shop and trying to see about how we're going to remedy the issue with the AMS Bridge Pay. The current contract with them, it's not supported, or I should say the interface isn't supported by Tyler, and that's why we've been in contract, negotiations or discussions with both Core, which now owns AMS Bridge Pay, and also with NCR. It's just a matter of who would be able to provide the best service that would be best for not only the citizens, but also for the city as well.
I still look at this and go, whoa.
It's one of the things, and I've mentioned it before, and when I first became treasurer, that's one thing that I looked at too, was what can we do to reduce the number of payment processors, because it is a lot. And as we noted in the response to Bailey, it can lead to confusion with citizens, because you got these differing rates. You could have one rate, for 2.25% for NCR, and then you could have another rate, for example, with the permit center. I think they're at 3%, a little over 3%, and that has to do with the system they're using. One of the things I found, and Frank can speak more about it, is that when it comes to these different systems, one, they have the connectivity or the integration. Two, and I found this with some of them, is we could have like utility billing where we bill out like maybe 1.5 million, whereas Health and Human Services might bill out only 100,000 a year. And a different contract, or maybe one contract could say, for this one, we're going to give you a 2.25% rate. And for this one, because you don't have as much billing or volume, we're going to give you a 3% rate. And that's one of the things that we've seen. With NCR, we've been fortunate is when we've added different city offices or modules, they've given us that standard 2.25%, and it's worked out. The only, I wouldn't say downside to everything, is sometimes we don't have the necessary integration. We might have to pay more for that maybe if NCR were to do that. But for now, being able to do like lockbox files, where our employees can upload the information into their respective system, that's been helping out.
On that, so with the example I'm sorry, were you finished? Okay, sorry about that. With utility billing and Health and Human Services, the example that you gave in the report as well as just now, the necessary integration, so I'm a little confused by that. So my question was, with this as an example, is this an example where more coordination could help with the negotiation and with kind of aligning some of the fees? Or because of the integration example that you just gave, does that interfere with those coordination opportunities?
As I mentioned in my response, there's a lot of stuff that happens on the backside of payments. I think a lot of, especially the citizens, they don't understand that in order to use a electronic processor, there's going to be fees involved. There's a percentage that these different companies are charging because of the work that they're having to do on their side. Now, when you're trying to do that, it's trying to manage it, and then this is where we'll bring in Mr. Abella's shop, because I know when we first looked at NCR, he was looking at, who's controlling the data, are they PCI compliant, do they have the necessary, technological interfaces that would work. And so I'll turn it over to Frank that he can explain a little better than I can to show how this impacts why we look at things the way we do.
Frank Abella, CIO, for the record. So what we're seeing in this market area, and I'm going to call it a market area, is there's so many interfaces out there that a lot of these bigger systems are starting to narrow down. So we're only going to utilize like an NCR, we're only going to use this API or this interface. So as we bring in new systems or starting to exchange systems out, we have a challenge with who is going to actually handle this processing. And that's why we have such a, getting back to your question is, that's why we have so many different interfaces, different payment plans. And it's pretty hard to say, okay, we're only going to go X. That would be great if we could do that. But in some of these departments, the amount of payment processing is so low, we don't have that opportunity to actually negotiate that out. This is it, have a nice day. You guys are only doing $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year. So it's a challenge, it's a big challenge. Are those discussions happening? Yes, they are on a constant basis. But we're also seeing on the other side of it, these larger entities, these larger systems, they're saying, this is us. We're the only people that you can actually use the API, and you're going to actually use our payment process. We're starting to see that a lot on the larger scale, say POS systems or any kind of payment process systems or something like landfill. That is happening currently, and that's kind of a common practice that's happening in the IT world. I hope that answers your question.
So the process, it's not something that in, Carson City billing, it's really specific to the different departments. And so what you're saying is it can't be, or it's not efficient or doesn't work under the umbrella of billing to Carson City and then a subcategory, whether it's Parks and Rec or whether it's landfill, that each department needs its own system because of specific needs and requirements?
It's more of the system itself. So say if you have Parks and Recs and they're only selling XYZ, it's a small POS system, right? I can name 50 million of them right off the bat. But they only have one or two payment processing systems for that point of sale system, since it's so small. We go back to, say, development or landfill, which are very, very large systems. They might have a larger set of what's called interfaces and everything else. These small systems, these kind of independent systems, are very, very hard and very, very challenging to actually get them to utilize what we need.
Thank you. That's helpful. Much obliged. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? Or is there any public comment? All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would move that we,
Or can you put your?
I would move that we accept the recommendations from the report and move forward with it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. The motion passes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the great report. All right. Next on the agenda, item 5B for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the monitoring, review, and closure of previous internal audit findings and or recommendations included in the audit findings tracking report, and a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to close completed findings and or recommendations. Sherry.
Thank you. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is page 32. It's the clerk recorder's office. We did change the expected date of completion on that to 12/30/2026. And there is an update there explaining why. I usually put those in peach, and for some reason I missed that box. It's in blue, so I wanted to point that out. The next one I want to go to is page 33. It's the payroll processing. We did complete number 2. The pay codes general guidelines are drafted. I've reviewed them, and they are currently in policy text, so that is complete. Yes,
I have a quick question on that one. This is on page 33, is that right?
it is.
So your note, so I wrote, is more time needed from the date of 7/31/25, or did your note
Oh,
refer to
no,
the
it's an actual
4/30?
completion date. So it was completed June 30th.
It was completed?
Yes, that one I am asking to close.
Okay, thank you.
I did change the date on item number 1 to give us a little more time to 12/31/2025. Again, it's written, it's in policy tech, but it's in the review process, so it hasn't gotten quite through that review process yet. So we're hopeful that by December it'll be complete and out there for everybody to see. And on the next page, 34, this is the purchasing contracts one. Asking to close item number 2. We did find that Munis can send reminder emails for the contracts. So it is set up every 60 days prior to a contract expiring. It sends out a reminder to whoever's, in charge of that contract. So that's all complete. And then the last one I'm asking to close is on the one that we just heard, the security compliance audit. The second one, the treasurer and contracts administrator immediately worked together, and their recommendation has been fulfilled. They're going to make sure she's monitoring all the contracts. So
Great, thank you.
it's very rare we get to do that, and present the report and close it immediately. So
No kidding.
it's fun when we get to do that.
Well, again, I just thought, talk about collaboration, the collaboration between the different departments and Carol, just, it's really appreciated. So, are there any questions? Any clarifications that need to be made? All right, then, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we close out as recommended.
Is there a second?
And I would second that motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, then we will close it out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, next, for discussion only, discussion regarding fiscal year 2026 audit work program update and fraud, waste and abuse hotline. Sherry.
Yes, and again, I'm going to toss this to Audrey Donovan. She's the one that monitors the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline.
Welcome, Audrey, again.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Sherry. Always a pleasure to be here with you all and really enjoy the discussion that we just had on the PCI credit card engagement. Felt that that was really timely, and the impact on that was really important. So that was the first of 3 engagements that we had go through the fiscal year 25-26. We have 2 others that are slated. The first one is the capital asset accounting, and the next one is the public guardian asset management. So following the last audit committee meeting, I met with Sherry and we talked with the public guardian, identified that capital assets timing is better to go first over public guardian. So we have a kickoff meeting scheduled for Wednesday to get that one underway, and that one we are looking to hopefully wrap up before the next audit committee meeting. It might be a little tight given the November, October holidays and individuals' vacation or leave. So we will coordinate that with Sherry and her team and ensure that we can deliver this timely for the next audit committee meeting. The additional items that are on the plan are assistance with follow-up and also do the risk assessment update. So we will be performing the risk assessment update roughly February of next year, along with the public guardian. We'll kick both of those off at the same time, February of 2026. When it comes to, and that wraps up our internal audit plan fiscal year 2026 and the updates. Any comments or questions?
No questions on my part.
Anything there? No? No? Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last area that we are responsible for is the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline that we have been monitoring. I was just in there a week ago. There were no reports that were directly related to the city. They do periodically, reports will pop up, as you know. They tend to gravitate towards identity theft. Somebody has been using their name to get a bank loan, but nothing that is specific to Carson City.
Great news. Thank you. All right, then that takes us to item 5D for discussion only. Consideration of dates for the next meeting of the Carson City Audit Committee. So we're talking February, is that right? I know, we're already in 2026. Yikes.
It goes by fast.
It does.
Well, assuming they don't.
They won't. I will make sure. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
No,
No, their questions
not at
are
all.
good. They're important.
Yeah, so do we want to go back to Tuesday? So February, maybe 3rd or the 10th? I guess, Audrey, do you have a preference as to when you can have the capital completed, you think?
I have a conflict on the 10th of February, but we are prepared for February the 17th, Tuesday, if that works for everyone.
That works for me. Does that work?
And that would be fine for me.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, then we will plan on Tuesday, the 17th at 1:30.
Perfecto. The 2026.
I know, yikes. All right. Great, okay, then we are at agenda item 6, public comments. Once again, the public is invited to provide comment on any topic that relates to a matter over which this public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power. Is there any public comment? Okay. Then, next action to adjourn. So we are adjourned. Hey, thanks everyone. And thank you, Audrey and the Ide Bailey team.